throwaway account for obvious reasons. I need to get this off my chest. My family, well, let's just say they had a clear favorite, and it wasn't me. It was always Serena, my younger sister. Serena, just saying her name makes my jaw clench. She was the golden child in every goddamn sense of the phrase. Smart, genius level apparently. Beautiful? That's what everyone told her all the time. But the worst part, she was always right, or at least that's what my parents believed. It didn't matter what I did, what I said, or how hard I tried. If Serena had an opinion, it was gospel. If she wanted something, she got it. End of discussion. And if she succeeded at anything, even something as trivial as winning a school raffle, it was celebrated like she just cured cancer. Me? I was just Ethan, the other kid. I didn't excel in school like Serena. I wasn't naturally outgoing or charming either. I was just there. A background character in the Serena show. And my parents, they compared me to her constantly. Why can't you be more like Serena? Serena wouldn't mess this up. Those words, they're burned into my brain. Every time I tried to share something I was excited about, a project, an idea, a goal, they'd laugh it off, or worse, they'd call me a loser, straight to my face. I remember this one time I told them I wanted to try starting a side business, selling custom phone cases online. My dad, Richard, literally laughed. A deep, booming, condescending laugh. You'd screw that up before it even got started. My mom, Patricia, chimed in with that sweet, sickeningly concerned tone she always used. Just focus on finding something you won't fail at, Ethan. And Serena? She sat there grinning like she was the queen of the goddamn house. It wasn't just the words, though. Serena had this way of controlling everything. If we decided to have a family dinner, she chose the restaurant. If I protested even mildly, she'd roll her eyes and say, "Oh, stop being so difficult, Ethan." And my parents would side with her every single time. She didn't just live in the house, she ruled it. And my parents, they enabled her. They encouraged it. It was like living in a golden cage. Everything was perfect on the surface, but inside, I was suffocating. I was constantly reminded of my inadequacy, my worthlessness. My parents had created this environment where Serena was always on top, and I was always beneath. It took years of that to realize the truth. They didn't want me to succeed. They didn't want me to be anything more than the foil to Serena's brilliance. I needed to get out. I needed to prove them wrong. But how? I was trapped. I was a nobody. Then one night, it all just snapped. Okay, so where did I leave off? Right. The night everything changed. We were all at the dinner table. Serena, predictably, was holding court, regaling everyone with a story about her latest academic triumph. My parents were lapping it up like thirsty dogs. I was trying to talk about a coding class I was taking online. I'd been teaching myself for weeks, poring over tutorials and online forums late into the night. I was finally starting to understand some concepts, to get it. I was actually proud of myself. And for a fleeting moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd show some interest. But before I could even finish my sentence, my father, Richard, snorted, just like that. Full-on, dismissive snort. "You're wasting your time, Ethan. People like you don't have what it takes to make it in something like that." Ouch. But wait, it gets better. Serena, naturally, had to chime in. "Seriously, Ethan, what's the point? You've never stuck with anything. And even if you did, it's not like you'd be successful." She said it with this casual cruelty, like she was stating a simple fact of the universe. Ethan is destined to fail. The sky is blue. I remember staring down at my plate, mashed potatoes. They looked like congealed disappointment. The words hit me harder than I wanted to admit. Part of me still craved their approval, even after all those years of being treated like garbage. That's when something inside me just broke. Not in a dramatic, sobbing, "I hate you" kind of way. More like a quiet, internal click. Like a switch flipping, a dam bursting. I don't know how to describe it. I didn't yell, I didn't argue. I didn't even say a word. I just decided I was done. I was completely done. I knew, in that moment, that I couldn't stay there. I couldn't keep living in that toxic environment, constantly being told I was worthless. I needed to get out. I needed to prove them wrong, not for them, but for me. The coding class. That was my ticket. It was the only thing I had, the only thing that gave me a glimmer of hope. I wasn't going to let their negativity crush it. I knew I had to leave, and I knew I had to do it soon. The question was, how? I didn't have any money. I didn't have any friends I could crash with. I didn't have a plan. All I had was a burning desire to escape, a laptop, and a stubborn refusal to be defined by their low expectations. That night, I barely slept. My mind was racing, trying to figure out a way to make it happen. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also knew that I couldn't stay. Not for another day. The next morning, while everyone was still asleep, I put my plan into action. Or what passed for a plan, which was basically just get the hell out. I packed a small bag with whatever I could fit. Clothes, my laptop, the most important thing, a few essentials like a toothbrush and a charger. I didn't leave a note. I didn't say goodbye. I just vanished, like a ghost in the machine. I'm sure they were expecting me to crawl back, tail between my legs, begging for forgiveness. But I wasn't going to. I had no plan, just this fiery determination to prove them wrong. I didn't care what it took. I wasn't coming back until I had something to show for it. When I left, I didn't have much. A few $100 I'd saved from my crummy part-time job at the grocery store, my laptop, and a whole lot of anger. I crashed at a cheap motel for one night, the kind of place where the sheets are questionable and the ice machine is always broken. It was depressing as hell, but it was freedom. Sort of. The next day, I started scouring Craigslist for a place to stay, anything that I could afford. I finally found a small room for rent in a rundown part of town. It wasn't much, just a mattress on the floor, a desk that wobbled every time I touched it, and a shared bathroom down the hall. But it was mine. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe. The first week was brutal. I kept hearing their voices in my head, calling me a loser, reminding me of every failure, every mistake I'd ever made. It was like they were living inside my head, constantly trying to drag me down. But that was the fuel I needed. I wasn't going to let them be right. I wasn't going to let them win. I spent hours every day glued to my laptop, watching tutorials, reading forums, and trying to figure out how to turn my coding skills into something that could make money. I was still a beginner, but I was determined to learn. I knew I needed to start small. I'd heard about freelance platforms where people hire developers for small projects, fixing websites, building simple apps, stuff like that. I created a profile, highlighting my limited skills and offering my services at a ridiculously low rate. I posted my first gig. I will build you a basic e-commerce website in 48 hours. I held my breath and waited. I couldn't believe it. Within 2 days, I had my first job. It wasn't glamorous, mind you. It was just a small online store for a guy who wanted to sell handmade candles. But I threw myself into it like it was the most important thing in the world. I worked day and night, fueled by coffee and sheer desperation. I poured all my energy, everything I had, into that stupid website. I learned as I went, Googling furiously whenever I hit a roadblock. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. I was determined to deliver something that would blow this guy away. When I finally finished, I was exhausted but strangely exhilarated. I sent him the link and waited, my heart pounding in my chest. A few hours later, I got a message. "Ethan, this is amazing. It's exactly what I wanted. Thank you so much." He even gave me an extra tip. That was it. That was the moment. The moment I realized that I could actually do this, that I could actually make a living doing something I was passionate about. That first positive review gave me a confidence boost I hadn't felt in years. It was like a shot of adrenaline to my soul. I started applying for more jobs, taking on as many projects as I could handle. I coded every waking hour, honing my skills with each new assignment. My reviews were glowing. More clients started reaching out to me directly. Within a month, I was making more money than I ever thought possible. Enough to pay rent, buy decent food, no more ramen, and even save a little. I was still living in that crummy little room, but it didn't feel so crummy anymore. It felt like my launch pad, my escape hatch. I was finally building something for myself, something real, something that no one could take away from me. But the moment that really hit me the hardest came at the end of the second month. I was scrolling through used car listings online, not seriously expecting to find anything I could afford, just dreaming. And then I saw it. A decent little sedan. Nothing fancy but reliable. The kind of car that would get me from point A to point B without breaking down every 5 minutes. The price? $8,000. I checked my bank account. I'd saved just enough to buy it outright. Sitting behind the wheel of that car for the first time felt surreal. It was like I was living in a dream. I couldn't help but think about what my parents would say, how they would laugh. Ethan, buying a car? Yeah, right. But I had done it. Me. The loser, the screw-up, the one who was destined to fail. I had bought a car, with my own money, earned through my own hard work. That's when I decided to go back. Not to stay. Not to apologize for leaving, but to show them. They'd spent years telling me what I couldn't do, and in 2 months I'd done more on my own than they ever thought possible. It was time to let them know. 2 days after I bought the car, I decided it was time. I hadn't told anyone where I was or what I was doing since I left. As far as my parents and Serena were concerned, I'd probably fallen flat on my face, just like they predicted. That thought made me smile as I pulled up to their house. The place looked the same, meticulously maintained. Serena's favorite flowers blooming in the garden. Typical. I parked the car on the street, took a deep breath, and walked to the door. For a second, I considered turning around and driving away. What was the point, really? Why did I even care what they thought? But no, they needed to see this. They needed to see that I wasn't the loser they'd always believed me to be. My mom, Patricia, opened the door. Her eyes widened in surprise. Ethan? Oh my God, it's you! She called for my dad and Serena. They rushed into the living room and stared at me like I was a ghost. Look who decided to show up, my dad said. His tone was somewhere between annoyed and curious. Serena was quiet, watching me with her arms crossed as if waiting for an explanation. I sat down at the dining room table, the same table where they'd laughed at me countless times. They followed me, still looking at me as if they couldn't understand what I was doing there. I didn't waste any time. I leaned back in my chair and said, "Remember how you always said Serena was perfect, and I was the loser who couldn't do anything right?" They didn't answer. My mom looked uncomfortable. My dad frowned. Serena grinned like she was still in charge. "Well," I continued, "I left 2 months ago, and in that time I started a business. And last week, I bought a car. It's parked outside." The room fell silent. My father's jaw actually dropped. My mom looked out the window like she didn't believe me. Serena's smirk finally disappeared. "What?" my mom finally said. "You bought a car?" "Yep, paid cash," I said, feeling a surge of satisfaction. Guess I didn't have to be like Serena after all. Serena started to say something, but my dad cut her off. "Wait a minute. You're telling me you started a business in 2 months?" "Sure did, and it's doing pretty well, actually," I said, trying not to sound too smug. "I don't need anything from you. I just thought you'd like to know." For once, they didn't have much to say. My dad mumbled something about how impressive it was. My mom started asking questions about the business. Serena, meanwhile, sat there looking like she just lost a contest she didn't know she was in. It was almost funny to watch them try to figure out how to respond. After years of putting me down, they suddenly wanted to act impressed, but I didn't care. I wasn't there for their approval. I'd already won. After a while, I stood up. "Well, this has been fun, but I've got things to do. I just wanted to stop by and share the good news." My mom tried to stop me. "Wait, don't go. Stay for dinner. Let's talk more." But I shook my head. Maybe another time. As I walked out the door, I could feel her eyes on me. It felt good. I wasn't the loser anymore. I wasn't something they could define. I was just Ethan. And for the first time, that was enough. The day after my visit, my phone buzzed with a call from my mother. I almost didn't answer it. I figured it would just be more of the same nonsense. Maybe some veiled attempt to guilt-trip me into coming home. But curiosity got the better of me. I swiped to answer. Her voice was unusually soft, almost apologetic. "Ethan, we've been thinking about what you said yesterday," she began. "Your father and I, we may have been too hard on you." "Wait, what?" "We're proud of what you did. Really proud." I didn't know how to respond. Proud? Of me. It was so out of character that I almost laughed. But I remained silent and let her continue. "We also talked about Serena," she added. "You know, we've been spoiling her too much. It's time she learned some responsibility. That caught me off guard. Serena? Responsibility? The same Serena that always got her way? I didn't believe it for a second. Okay, I said, and hung up. I dismissed it as a momentary lapse in judgment on their part. A fleeting moment of guilt. I figured they'd go back to their old ways soon enough. But I was wrong. It wasn't until a few days later that I realized they were serious. I went back to the house to pick up some things I'd left behind, and the vibe was completely different. My parents were practically doting on me, like I was the golden child. And Serena? She looked miserable. When I walked in, my mom practically ran up to me with a big smile. "Oh, Ethan, we were just talking about you. We were saying how impressive you've become. Your business, your car. It's amazing." Serena, who was sitting on the couch, shot me a look. "Oh, please," she muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. My dad turned to her, and for the first time in my life, he didn't defend her. "Serena, don't start. Maybe you should take a page from your brother's book and think about doing something productive for once." I almost choked. My dad, the guy who used to worship the ground Serena walked on, was actually criticizing her. Serena's face turned red. She stormed off to her room without saying a word. At dinner, it got even stranger. My mother kept asking me for advice about business, about saving money, even about technology, things she'd always dismissed as boring or unimportant. Every time Serena tried to chime in, she was shut down. "Serena, let your brother speak," my father snapped at one point. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The balance had shifted. My parents had gone from treating me like a failure to treating Serena like she was the problem. And she hated it. As I was leaving, Serena cornered me in the hallway. "What did you do to them?" she hissed. I raised an eyebrow. "Nothing. Maybe they just realized you're not as perfect as they thought." She scoffed. "You think this is funny? They treat me like garbage now, and it's your fault." I didn't bother to answer. I just walked past her, still trying to process how quickly everything had changed. Truth is, I didn't feel sorry for her. Not even a little. She'd spent years making my life miserable, and now she was finally getting a taste of what it felt like to be on the other side. It wasn't my fault they turned on her. I just showed them there was more to me than they ever wanted to see. If anything, I figured she'd survive. She was still Serena, after all. She'd find a way to make it all about her again, or so I thought. Serena wasn't one to sit quietly when things didn't go her way. After a lifetime of being queen of the house, she wasn't going to let her crown slip away without a fight. It started with little snide comments whenever I visited, subtle jabs at my success, things that were easy to ignore. "Oh, Ethan's so busy with his important business. It must be nice to have so much money." But over time, her frustration boiled over, and she began openly trying to win my parents back. One day, I stopped by the house for dinner. It was something my mom had been insisting on lately, and since I wasn't one to pass up a free meal, I went. As soon as I walked in, Serena was sitting in the living room with my parents, all smiles. She was showing them something on her phone. "Look, Mom, Dad," she said, loud enough for me to hear from the doorway. "I'm also thinking about starting an online business. I've been doing some research, and I think I could do really well with it. Don't you think that's a good idea?" My mother nodded politely. "That sounds nice, Serena." Serena's eyes flicked to me. "I mean, I've always been so good at managing things, and I already have some great ideas. I just need some help to get started. Maybe you could give me a little loan, Mom and Dad?" I sat down at the table and tried not to laugh. My father shook his head. "Serena, we've supported you enough over the years. If you're serious about this, why don't you ask your brother for advice? He figured it out for himself. Maybe you can too." The look on her face was priceless. She stammered something about how I just got lucky and tried to brush it off, but it was obvious that her plan had failed. My parents weren't buying her act. A few weeks later, my mom brought up an idea I hadn't considered. "You know," she said during one of our conversations, "you could save so much money if you just moved back home for a while. It doesn't make sense to waste all that money on rent when you could live here for free." At first, I wasn't sure. The thought of living under the same roof as Serena again didn't exactly appeal to me. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. My business was growing, but it wasn't at the point where I wanted to throw money away on rent. Living at home could help me save faster. So I agreed. I moved back in, set up a small workspace in the corner of my old room, and got back to work. My parents treated me like royalty. They made me breakfast, asked how my business was going, and even bragged about me to their friends. Serena, meanwhile, was furious. She'd gone from being the favorite to being practically ignored. My parents barely listened to her, and when they did, it was usually to compare her to me. "Why don't you try doing something like your brother?" my father would say. "Look how independent he's become." It was surreal. For years, I'd been living in Serena's shadow, and now the roles were completely reversed. She tried everything to make things work in her favor, being extra sweet to our parents, pretending to be supportive of me, even trying to butter me up with compliments. But it was all so fake, and everyone could see through it. I'd catch her staring at me sometimes, like she was waiting for me to screw up, but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. I kept my head down, worked hard, and watched her flounder in her attempts to regain her throne. The best part? I saved a ton of money. Every month, I put away almost everything I earned, knowing that the more I saved, the sooner I could move out and never look back. Serena could try all she wanted. But the truth was, my parents didn't love me for who I was. They loved me for what I represented, success. And that was something Serena couldn't fake, no matter how hard she tried. For once, the house didn't feel like her kingdom. It felt like mine. Serena wasn't done yet. Her frustration had morphed into desperation. She hated that I was back. She hated that our parents had turned all their attention to me. And most of all, she hated that nothing she did seemed to change the situation. So, she decided to take a more aggressive approach. One night, after our parents had gone to bed, she burst into my room. Her face was red. She slammed the door behind her like she owned the place. "This has gone far enough," she hissed. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Waltzing back in here and turning mom and dad against me? Well, I'm not going to let you ruin my life." I leaned back in my chair and stared at her. "Ruin your life? Serena, you're the one who's been running things around here for years. What's wrong? Can't handle not being the favorite anymore?" Her eyes narrowed. "You think this is funny? I swear, if you don't back off and leave, I'll make your life a living hell. I'll tell mom and dad all kinds of things about you. I'll make sure they hate you again, just like they used to." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She would really go that far? I shook my head, more amused than anything else. "Serena, you're the only one ruining your life, and if you think I'm afraid of your threats, you don't know me at all." She stormed out, muttering something under her breath. But the next day, she started making good on her threats. She told my parents that I'd been sneaking out at night and wasting money on gambling. Completely fabricated nonsense. She even accused me of stealing money from her, which was ridiculous since she didn't even have a job. At first, my parents didn't know what to think. My mom asked me about the gambling story, and I calmly explained that it wasn't true. My dad, to his credit, seemed skeptical of Serena's claims from the start. But the turning point came when Serena got caught in her own web of lies. One night, my mother overheard Serena on the phone with a friend, and what she heard changed everything. "If I can just convince them he's a liar, they'll treat me like they used to," Serena said, laughing. "It's so easy to manipulate them. Ethan's so clueless." That was it. My mother was furious. She came straight to me and demanded to know what else Serena had done. I told her everything. How Serena had threatened me, made up stories, and done everything in her power to sabotage me. My father joined the conversation, and the more they heard, the angrier they became. The next morning they confronted Serena. At first, she denied everything, but when my mom brought up the phone call she'd overheard, Serena broke down. She started screaming about how unfair it was that I was getting all the attention. She said she was tired of being ignored and treated like she didn't matter. My dad didn't hold back. "You're the one who's been ignoring everyone else for years, Serena. You've been selfish and manipulative, and we're done. If you can't live here in peace, then maybe it's time you found somewhere else to live." Serena's jaw dropped. "You're kicking me out?" My mother nodded. "We've had enough. You can stay with a friend until you figure out how to take care of yourself." Serena tried to argue, tried to cry, but it didn't work. At the end of the day, she packed her things and called a friend to pick her up. As she left, she shot me a look that could have burned a hole through steel. "You're going to regret this," she said. But I didn't regret it. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in control. Like I wasn't just surviving in Serena's shadow. And even though I knew my parents' sudden change of heart was tied to my success, I didn't care. I was building something real, something they couldn't take away from me. And Serena was finally facing the consequences of her actions. It wasn't my problem anymore. Serena stayed with a friend for a while, but it didn't last. Her entitled attitude wore thin, and she eventually had to move in with roommates and get a part-time job, working at a coffee shop, if you can believe it. From what I heard, she had a hard time adjusting to not being the center of attention. Her relationship with our parents became distant. They didn't cut her off completely, but they stopped spoiling her. No more designer clothes, no more extravagant vacations. My mother once said, maybe this is the wake-up call she needed. As for me, my parents treated me much better than before. They still praised me excessively, which felt a bit hollow, but at least they weren't actively trying to tear me down anymore. They dropped hints about me helping out financially, which I occasionally did to keep things running smoothly. Paying for repairs on the house, contributing to family vacations, things like that. It was a small price to pay for a little peace and quiet. Serena and I didn't talk. She blamed me for her problems, and I didn't bother to respond. What was the point? I focused on building my future. The business continued to grow. I hired a small team of developers. I moved out of my parents' house and into a nice apartment downtown. I bought a newer, even nicer car. I no longer needed anyone's approval. Not theirs, not Serena's. The family dynamic had changed, drastically, but I had outgrown it. I felt truly free, for the first time. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't left. If I had stayed in that toxic environment, constantly being told I was worthless. Would I have ever broken free? Would I have ever realized my potential? I don't know. But I'm grateful for the experience. It taught me resilience. It taught me to believe in myself even when no one else did. And it taught me that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was messy, complicated, and a little bit bittersweet. But it was my story, and I wrote it myself.